Hi guys, this is Andrew with Headphones.com, and today we're going to talk all about headphone cables. And it's a good thing that this isn't a controversial topic at all. I'm glad that there aren't any strong opinions out there about this. Not a single one. So let's talk about it. So you likely clicked on this video for one of two reasons. You're either looking for some sort of indication for the idea that expensive audio cables matter or expensive headphone cables matter, or you're warming up those fingers and getting ready to dive deep into the comments about how there's no objective, measurable difference. You can't tell in a blind test, it's all snake oil and madness, and so on. Well, as it happens, both of these viewpoints are wrong. You're all wrong, mostly. And I think the question regularly comes up, like, is upgrading a cable a good way to level up your headphone setup to get the most out of what you already have? I think a lot of people are looking to try and do that, and that's why they're diving deep into, getting expensive supplementary gear for the headphones that they have. And when it comes to headphone cables, I'm going to be doing a little bit of debunking in that regard. The short answer is no, but there's more to it than just that, and it's worth understanding what's going on. Let me just show you this cable here. This is the default cable that comes with a particular headphone. And I'm going to be showing you measurements of a headphone with this cable. Now, this is the crazy audiophile cable that I've measured it against. Like, look at the size of this thing. 2 chains ain't got shit on me. I don't even need 2. 1 chains. Okay, that doesn't work. In any case, this is a cable made by Viking Weave Cables, otherwise known as Skedra. Shout out to Skedra. Now, when I first heard this, or the headphones with this cable, it was at CanJam SoCal, and I approached it with all the skepticism in the world. A few of my friends took me over to the RAL booth and were like, you will hear a difference with this cable. And I was so sure that I wouldn't. Because when it comes to this kind of stuff, I've never been able to tell a difference in a blind test. Anyways, we started by using the default cable, and then I swapped to this one and put the headphones on and was about to loudly proclaim to the world that I do not hear a difference when I immediately realized, wait a sec, I do hear a difference. Not only was it slightly warmer sounding, it was also louder. And not just a little bit louder, it was very obviously louder. And as it happens, I had someone filming my reaction to this. So let's give that a watch. They're gonna try and convince me that cables make a difference. With Jesus! What the hell?
So here's the thing, is that you're amazed by this. There are DIYs
There
back
are,
in
I have
Singapore
seen
that make it far, far worse than this. Alright, convince him away, I need to go on.
And then I actually bent the headband because
Oh, for this one?
I bent it back because this wasn't touching deep enough.
Oh,
I think these
you need it to touch as deep as possible.
Yeah, these are angled.
Okay, I got a sense.
All right. Cool.
It's definitely louder. Is it supposed to be warmer?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
You get more trouble.
So very obviously this is louder. So this is what I want to measure.
It's both louder and more warmer, like richer.
You can ask Danny about it.
Yeah, but this is not like, so we're not talking about any magical properties here. We're talking about clearly measurable things. Like this will be a higher
you can just
volume.
measure it with an LCR meter.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, you probably want proof that there is in fact a difference, an objective measurable difference between these two cables. And so I'm going to show you that right now. Looking at the measurements, you can see the difference I was experiencing. With the Skedra cable, it was around 6 dB louder across the entire spectrum. And I had to do a lot of different seatings with this, a lot of different measurements to make sure it wasn't just because of a seating difference. But consistently in my testing, the Skedra cable also measured a little bit warmer in the upper treble. So there's a little bit less energy, in the upper regions there for the frequency response. And that matched what it was that I heard at the show, or the difference that I heard when going between the two cables at the show. So there you have it. Proof that a cable can in fact make an objective, measurable, and audible difference. But here's the catch. This is all specific to the RAL headphones right here. And if you haven't seen my video on the RAL CA1A, which is this one, that's linked in the description or somewhere. And so you can check that out. But in addition to using a particularly unique driver type for this headphone, the RAL headphones also have next to no impedance. So let's talk about first what impedance is. Imagine you have an amp that's outputting 1 volt. For an HD600, that gets you around 100 dB SPL approximately. It's not exactly, but close enough. If you take another HD600 and somehow plug it into the first HD600 so the voltage goes from one into the other in series on its way through, the voltage on each will get cut in half because the voltage across both together stays the same. Now, if you had a cable that was the same impedance as the HD600 headphones, you would get the same effect, not because the cable is making any kind of noise or any kind of sound on its own, but because all the voltage is shared between everything in the circuit. So if there are two impedances that are the same in series, each of them gets half the voltage. If both the headphones and the source impedance are flat for the entire frequency range, you just lose output level, meaning it gets quieter. If one of them or both of them vary in impedance versus frequency at different places, you get a different amount of loss at different frequencies, which is basically the same thing as doing EQ. +1 for the EQ gang. So, in theory, swapping to a different cable could have an impact on a headphone sound signature. Practically speaking, in most cases, we're talking about very small differences, like 0.1 dB, which isn't really going to be audible, or at least not something you can recognize that easily. But it would also be incorrect to say that swapping to a different headphone cable doesn't make an electrical or measurable difference. And beyond that, there is also potential for there to be an audible difference with headphones that have very low impedances. Like, we're typically talking around less than 10 ohms, that's what we're talking about with these ones here, or a headphone with a highly reactive impedance like what you get with certain electrostatic headphones. So take that, cable deniers, cables can in fact make a difference. But in practice, most cables have a linear impedance, at least at audio frequencies. There may be some edge cases where a cable is wound in circles that leads to it having a meaningful inductance, but for headphones, when we're dealing with noodles like these, you're unlikely to encounter it. With a cable that has linear impedance, paired with a headphone that does not have linear impedance, the only way that's going to make a tangible difference in the sound is if the impedance is high, so higher than normal. And this is essentially the same effect you get when running those same headphones out of higher output impedance sources. You've heard me talk about this in the past. So the bottom line for cables is that yes, they do have the potential to make an audible difference, but this is down to the impedance relationships with the rest of your equipment. And in the majority of cases, the change isn't going to be something that's audible. So in cases where there is a measurable, objective, audible difference, there's no magic to be had here. Now, I wanted to briefly also talk about why this happens, or what's going on with these cables, and whether or not you could sort of predict what an outcome would be. And I think the answer there is you unfortunately can't, because a lot of this is wrapped up in marketing and assumptions people make, and actually snake oil. So if you have a thick, high impedance cable, that means it likely is made to deceive you into thinking that it's better or more conductive. Like more material equals more better and more conductive, etc. But if you have a thick, low impedance cable, it will in fact be more conductive. And in this case, the cable here is massive, and we do indeed see a change in volume level, indicating that it most likely is highly conductive. So with this one, there isn't actually any snake oil going on. This is actually, in fact, making a tangible difference, as I showed you with the measurements. Now, with all that said, this effectively means that there are only a handful of headphones where using a cable like this is going to have an effect. The reason you don't see this happen with other more traditional headphones is that their impedance is much higher than what you would get on these ones. Even when it comes to low impedance headphones, like what you get with many common planar magnetics, they're not really going to show, this kind of result all that commonly, even though it is in theory possible that they could. In most cases, we're talking about linear impedances, and that's not going to result in any meaningful change to the sound signature, even if something is louder or quieter. The other thing to consider is that not all cables are marketed around this concept. The idea that for headphones, like these ones here, you're likely to get a result based on specific measurable properties a cable has. More generally, you find marketing that speaks to the subjective aspects of sound quality, and for that, you're at the mercy of your own auditory memory, which is quite frankly unreliable. Now, if you believe that there are sonic differences in cables that aren't measurable or go beyond existing metrics, nothing I say here is likely to change your mind about this. And let's be clear, there is no existing audio metric other than frequency response that's going to matter for this kind of stuff, that's going to matter for the outcome. Like whatever you did to change the sound, if it does in fact change the sound, like what we saw with the measurement here, this isn't something that's going to show up differently in CSD or square wave or impulse response or anything other than frequency response, because those are just different, worse ways of looking at the same thing. And if you want to learn more about that, we've done a video on the 10 stages of reading headphone measurements that might be helpful there. At the end of the day, feel free to continue believing they make a difference beyond what I've discussed here if you do. Just know that that also entails a commitment to the idea that there's something else currently not being measured. Maybe magic is in fact real. You never know. But that's not a direction that I'm going to go with this. So to give you a bit of a guideline for when cables might matter, the first thing you have to do is consider the headphones in question, the headphones that you're trying to run. If the headphones you're intending to use don't have extremely low impedance, then upgrading or changing a cable isn't going to make any measurable difference. So use whatever is ergonomically good. In situations where you do have headphones like these ones here, or others that have similar impedance specs, then you could potentially get a measurable difference with a cable swap, depending on the properties of the cable. So you kind of have to know what's actually going on with the cable to be able to predict the result on your headphones. And so to answer the question I asked at the beginning of this video about whether or not upgrading a cable is a good way to sort of level up your headphone setup, when it comes to sound quality, like not the ergonomics or anything else, the answer is generally no. You are far better off either learning how to EQ the headphones you already have, which is free, or getting a pair that better suits your preferences. The exceptions are with very niche specific headphones, like the Rouse right here, or the Campfire Andromeda, which have extremely low impedances already, where the impedance threshold for the cable to make a difference is lower. And I'm just going to say that again so that it's clear. With headphones like these ones, or the Campfire Andromeda, or other similarly low impedance headphones, the threshold for a cable to make a difference, the impedance threshold for a cable to make a difference, is lower. And that means that it's these types of cases that you are more likely to see a measurable difference in. And so my advice, again, would be to just learn how to EQ your headphones. Obviously because it's free, yes, but also because, you know, if we're talking about getting expensive cables in cases where they do actually make a difference, you can be far more surgical with the differences that you get with EQ, right? If you're getting a cable that actually does in fact make a tangible difference because of the impedance relationship, that's based on the impedance curves of the headphones that you have, and it's not necessarily something that you're gonna like. You might like that, but you don't know for sure, and that's why, again, I think you may as well just go with EQ because it's effectively doing the same thing in these cases where it does make a tangible difference. And at least when you're doing EQ, you can decide where you want the bass shelf to be. You can decide, you know, what level you want, you know, 6K to be. Whereas, you know, if you're doing this kind of thing, you're a little bit at the mercy of the equipment that you already have. Anyways, I hope that clears up some of the confusion on this topic, and I'm sure that, you know, nobody else is going to have any strong opinions, and the comments will be completely blank. Lovely. But that does it for this video. Once again, make sure you guys check out the audio files up on headphones.com for more articles, guides, reviews, etc., and content like this. And you can also connect with me and tell me that I'm wrong in our Discord. That's also linked in the description, so check all of that out. Until next time, thanks for taking the time to watch this one, and I will see you guys later.